All right. I'm a compulsive eater named Victor, and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet, and I write those meals down and commit them to my sponsor. And I weigh and measure without exception. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life. It's the most important spiritual practice I do on a daily basis. Uh, I there's a couple things. I'll just point out a couple things that kind of make me feel, that really kind of point to the obsession of the mind and the spiritual malady that I was going through when I grew up regarding and my abstinence date is May 20th of 2023. And um and uh All right, let me focus back on what I'm doing. It's that ADHD kind of thing. I start paying attention to somebody on the screen, and then the next thing I know, I'm like, What happened?" And it's nothing that they're doing. It's just like, I wonder what they're doing in their house. So I was always I wasn't say always a heavy kid, but there was key moments in my life that I was a heavy kid, and they were pointed out to me. Um, so one was with a friend, and his sister pointed out that I was fat, and then that was like ting, it's like, oh, I'm fat. So I I went home and just stared at myself in the mirror, like, oh, so this is what it looks like when you're fat. And I wasn't really that overweight as a kid. It's like just growing up. And then another one was I was probably over 200 pounds, and uh I was um working at a restaurant at the time. I was a busboy at the time, and I my manager at that time said, "Geez, Victor, you need a bra." And I was like, "Thanks." And I was doing a lot of drugs back then too, so all I did was just go home and eat and take a lot of drugs just to try to forget about that. That went hand in hand for my use, and it was like drugs and food were like the key elements to my my alchemy of trying to get out of the to deal with the spiritual malady. It's like trying to turn lead into gold. So I think about all these things that, I could laugh about some of this stuff now, but at the time it was pretty tragic. It's like, and then growing up in school, I dropped out of high school when I was like, sophomore. Well, I was like in my first semester of my sophomore year. I finished that one. I didn't pass anything in that. I was, I was having some issues with epilepsy. I was having what they call partial complex or complex partial, depending on the doctor that uses it, where I have a cyst in my frontal lobe, and in the left, so that's all comprehension, and visual, taking in visual and comprehending it, and that type of thing. And so, and it does affect the right side of my body. Sometimes I can't control my arm. And this has been a while since it's been a very long time since I've had a seizure, and because it's all under control. So I was basically like I was hallucinating a lot, like just because of the effect that it had on my brain. And then I was going through puberty at that time. So it was like really even, well, I was past puberty, but you know what I mean. It was like still those hormones are crazy. And So I would have these things, and so it shuts off this side of your brain, and this side of your brain is still active. So you see things, you interact with the world, but you can't comprehend anything. It's just like you can't, if you look at like a piece of paper, you can't, you see it, but you don't know that that's a piece of paper. You know that it's something, but you don't know what it is. So that I was having those constantly, like throughout the day. And I thought it was just me, normal me. I never took care of myself. And then I would like, so I started doing narcotics too, and then that didn't really help. Um, I mean, that wasn't a good thing for me to be doing because then I was like really hallucinating, because it had that effect on my brain. And then coupled with it being a compulsive eater, I would, I mean, that was like what I would do. I would do a lot of drugs and then I'd go out and try to find the place to get what I needed. And we'd get a bunch of food and then I would make sure that I had a Diet Coke because I was watching my weight. And so got to always have that Diet Coke because that just counterbalances. It's like, oh, Diet Coke. There we go. And and so that was my life. And then so I became exercise bulimic. I was really, and I would say, there for a while, I just survived on, I was so rattled in my brain with substance abuse that there was a time where I was anorexic. I wasn't eating at all, you know. And there's a couple pictures of me back in that time where I look at it now and I was like, whoa, I was pretty damn skinny there, did not look good on me. And I had a mullet too, so that didn't look good on me either. But I so, those are kind of the key things in my life that kind of show me that I'm a compulsive eater, obsessing on mind, that fixed idea, it's like, what the doctor says here in the doctor's opinion that they are restless, irritable, and discontent unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes once by taking that first bite, food which they see others taking with impunity, so they can eat that and eat this, and they go, "Oh, it's too rich." It's like fuck you. After they have succumbed to that desire again, as many so many do, the phenomena of craving develops, and they pass through that well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, um, from a firm resolution not to compulsively eat again. This is repeated over and over again. Unless the person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope. So what that tells me is like if I don't change my thoughts and my actions, I will I will inevitably eat again, which I did relapse in 2023. I've been abstinent at that time back to back from compulsive eating since 2001 to that point. So, but I forgot that, I was having some mental issues anyway at that time. And so I did not take care of myself. And um, which was, take care of the mind and the spirit. That's what this program is designed for. And when I say that weighing and measuring is the number one spiritual practice that I do every day. That is a communion with my higher power at that point, you know. There's this really cool uh, Buddhist saying that's really neat that yeah, thank you, Annette. And it says, you know, we revere the three treasures and give thanks for this food, the work of many people, and the transformation of all forms of life. And so, you know, for me, it's about that, you know, that this is food that is nourishing and transform and not only transforms is transformed from other forms of life, but is also transforming me, you know. And so I weigh at the last weigh day I was I've gained weight, and so now I'm back on losing some weight because of some medication I was taking. I'm not taking it anymore, but I'm at 156. So I was over 200. I was like 210, something like that. When I stopped weighing after that point, I was like, there's no reason to be weighing anymore. It's like, you know, and that's kind of one of those things, you know, there's another so you know that's this the going on to the bitter ends, you know, it's like it's like um there's this saying when at the end of the road that we can find that we can no longer function as a human being either with the food or without the food, right? So I wasn't even functioning as a human being when I was compulsively eating. And so you know, I think that fixed idea I used to have about this food saving, you know, making me somebody or fixing my spirit was this false idea that this is going to fix me. And you know, once I ate, that a compulsion would take over, you know. And so what the steps are, you know, and I think that's one thing we sometimes we fail to focus on is that this is a 12-step program. And if I don't make a complete psychic change through the application of the steps, I will once again go back into that fixed idea that the food will fix me. And then that obsession of the mind, this obsession that this thought, this single idea that food will solve all my problems will come again. And then if I eat, I will eat again and eat again and eat again. And that's what the steps are designed for. And I think, you know, I look at step one, okay, the problem. I'm a compulsive eater and my life is unmanageable. I used to try to manage my my life with the food, but it's like, okay, my life is unmanageable and I'm a compulsive eater. And then the other idea is like the second step is a solution. Came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And for me, that's what the steps, you know, those action steps are all about is, you know, finding out what the problem is. And a lot of it has to do with that spiritual part, that selfish, self-centered, dishonesty, and afraid, fear, that 100 forms of fear or whatever, you know. And then the 6 and 7, I don't think we spend enough time in that area. It's like finding out, thank you, and that and finding out that and I'll finish with this is that 6 and 7 is, I think, the key to becoming a different psychic, that complete psychic change is like, I have these character defects. I've identified those character defects or whatever. I hate the word defects, so I'll just call them shortcomings. Those shortcomings, right? These areas that I need to improve. I need to put some principles in action to counteract that, whether you call that spiritual principles. I like to call them ethical principles too. principles in my life that I believe are ethical to my core being and beliefs that will allow me to practice those as opposed to practicing these, right? These character defects. And the more I practice them, and I'll end with this, the more I practice them in my life, that psychic change takes place. And that's where the spiritual awakening comes in. You know, my spirit is awakened, and now that my spirit is awakened, I can carry that same message, right? So having my spirit awake, you know, I am no longer awake, dreaming, thinking I'm dreaming, dreaming that I'm awake, or what. I can't remember what the saying is, but anyway, if you're new and you're struggling, I totally understand. You know, take it one day at a time. Try to think about uh, turning your thoughts to someone you can help, even if it's just making that phone call because you're helping that other person just by making a phone call. And you being on here is helping me. So give yourself a hand for that. And with that, I will pass. Thank you for letting me be of service.